Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday with the Family. We have an exciting one for you today with Deputy OSU Athletic Director Chad Weiberg. I know that sports are a big topic right now. Everybody is hopeful and yet concerned all at the same time. So we're hoping that we can get some of those questions answered for you today. Chad, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you, Julia. It's great to be with you.
Well, tell me kind of what has life been like for you since March? It's got to have been a crazy season.
Crazy is a good word for it. I think another word that I keep using a lot is unprecedented. It seems like about every day is a new day, an unprecedented day, something that we've never gone through before, had to deal with before. So just trying to navigate that.
Well, we know that a lot of viewers have questions as well. So I do want to remind you that if you're watching on Facebook, you can submit a question that way. You can also use our Ask a Question button on the ALC webinar if you're watching that way. So submit those as you can. I'll get through some of my questions first, and then we will get to some of yours as well. So Chad, let's talk a little bit about the return to campus. We're bringing students back, and specifically student athletes. What has that been like?
Yeah, that's right. The traffic has really picked up around Stillwater, and that's a great thing to see. I've always said that this was one of the most exciting times to be in a college town like here in Stillwater, because everyone is coming back to town. There's so much excitement, and literally you can feel the energy in the air, and just what makes being part of a college campus so great and living in a college town so great. Back in March when everybody started shutting down things because of the virus and the unknowns around it, one of the things that really wasn't a whole lot of thought was put into, I don't think anywhere, was what does it look like to start to bring, in our case, particularly student athletes, back to campus and get them ready to start competing again. And of course, at the time when all of that was happening, we didn't even know when we would have the ability to do that at all. And but then when things started kind of turning and the conversation started among the leadership, started talking about dates that we could begin to bring student athletes back, we put together a task force, and we were very fortunate to have some very qualified people to be on that task force, starting with Dr. Casey Schramm, president of OSU Health Sciences, and Johnny Stevens and Dennis Blankenship at OSU Health Sciences. They were a huge part of being able to start to bring our student athletes back. Of course, we have Dr. Ivan here, Valjean Ivan, on our staff. We're fortunate to have a team physician and in normal time, and that became amplified a great deal with this going on, to have a team physician right here on our staff. Of course, John Stem and all of our athletic training staff has done a great job through this. So, and a number of other people, Leon McClinton that is over housing here on campus, and Ben Crawford over our dining. There were just a whole lot of people that were involved in what does the plan look like to bring our student athletes back to campus. And so we did. We put a plan together, obviously, that revolved around testing them back when they got back. So we kind of knew what it was that we might be dealing with there. And then we've had continuing surveillance testing while they have been here, just so we can stay on top of if we've got any issues. Obviously, quarantining and isolation if we have any positives, and all the protocols then around bringing them back into training once they come out of that isolation, because there are, some potential health effects that go along with this. And we want to make sure that they are completely healthy before they return to play.
Right. And, I look at like the NBA that's been able to create kind of a bubble. In college athletics, you can't really do that, So what does that look like, and precautions that are in place as these students still have to go to class? I'm assuming they are, or are they all in virtual classes?
Right. I mean, they are student athletes, and students being the first part of that. And so it is difficult to think about how you would create a bubble from the perspective like the NBA has. This is a campus, and ironically, I think most university campuses, certainly Oklahoma State's campus, as most people on this call know, is very well designed for socialization. They did not have isolation in mind when they built this campus, this beautiful campus, and so it is a different kind of bubble, but that is a little bit of the approach that we've taken to it, at least during the time that they are in our facilities, as we've tried as best we can to create bubbles within our facilities. So football is in the west end zone. We've kind of created bubbles here in the Gallagher Arena for the sports that use the arena, and then tried to create bubbles for the other sports in their facilities as much as we possibly can, just so that we are limiting the cross interaction that they're having with each other and that the staffs are having while they are here in our facilities.
And then financially, I know that's a big concern with football season coming up. What has the financial fallout looked like for OSU athletics? Or do we know?
We really don't know yet. That's a really good question. And, a lot of that, obviously, everyone's aware that so much of our revenue comes from the football season. And so we won't know completely what that looks like until we know what kind of football season that we've been able to have, how many games we've played, what the attendance looks like, and things like that. But we do know this. We know that it's going to be significantly impacted. We're going to be down a significant amount, whatever that looks like, and we're working on, we have started cutting budgets and as much as we can to mitigate that, and we'll have to probably take some additional steps to try to balance the budget as much as we possibly can.
And we had that football schedule up there as well. If people want that, they can find that on the athletics website, as well as I believe the Alumni Association has that up too. So then aside from COVID-19, it's been an eventful off season. And give me an update on Coach Gundy, Chuba Hubbard, the rest of the players, and that dynamic, what that looks like right now.
Yeah, I think right now everything seems to be, relatively well. I think part of it is we're back into more of our normal routine, and it's great to see that. It's great just to see football practices going on across the street at the Sherman Smith Indoor Center. And so I think, we all I know I do, need structure and need routine and need that kind of purpose. And so I think it's good for the football team as well as the rest of our teams to start to get that too. But you touched on some of the eventful off season that we had, and we did. And I think that what I would say out of that is that I believe that will end up being a really, really good thing for OSU football and OSU athletics, for our student athletes. I think good things will come out of that, and we'll get better because of it.
So the Big 12 has decided that they're going to play. The Big 10 said they weren't. All these conversations, from your perspective, what does that look like, and are we confident in our decision to play?
Well, I will say at this point that we are confident in our decision to play, Julia, and I think that's just it. We are constantly assessing this, not only here at Oklahoma State, but among the other schools in the Big 12, and as a conference we are. And so that is where we are at this moment, is our medical professionals feel confident with us moving forward towards a season. And here on our campus, I feel very confident about that. And again, it kind of goes back to the task force that we assembled and the abilities that we've had to test our student athletes and take care of them. So it's not a perfect science. I don't think anybody has all of the exact answers to it, but I can't imagine that there's any place that has a better plan than what we have here in terms of what we're doing in the testing and taking care of them if they do have a positive. So for us, that is what is giving us the ability to have the confidence to say that we think that we can play a season. And in fact, we think that that is the best thing that we could do for our student athletes, is to play a season. If you don't get to play a season, then you're essentially turning the student athletes out of this sort of semi-bubble that we've tried to create, or you're pushing them away from the testing and all of the medical protocols that we've had. So I think our student athletes in some cases are in the best position that they could be in terms of relative to the rest of the population, I think, in terms of those protocols that we've put into place. And so it's because of that we feel confident that we can continue. And I think that is where most of the schools in the Big 12 are. I can't speak to, for sure what is going on in the Big 10 or the Pac-12 or some of the other conferences that maybe have decided not to play. Although I think we do know that one of the things about this virus is it is impacting different parts of the region differently. And I think the ability to get tests and do some of those things are maybe more challenging in other parts of the country as well. And so some of it may just be that there wasn't the confidence that they were able to do some of those things that we are here so far. So again, just feel very fortunate and because of that, confident that we are able to move forward at this point.
And I saw one example that spirit squads and band members were not going to be traveling. What about fans traveling? Because in concept, that's similar.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. And so right now we are planning to, obviously, like we just talked about, move forward with the season. Having said that, the season is going to look very different than it normally does. And a lot of that is for that very reason, is we're trying to keep everyone involved with the game as safe as we possibly can. So one of the first things you're going to see is that there is going to be a lot less people on the field and around the field. The field is really going to be protected for just the players, the coaches, the essential, the officials, the essential people to playing the game. So you will not see spirit squads on the field. You're not probably going to see bands on the field, those kinds of things. And so it's just going to be a very clean, if you will, environment down on the field. Now, we'll still have those elements in the stadium. They just won't be on the field. Likewise, we will have a reduced capacity in the stadium. We will have to distance the fans in the stadium as a protection for the fans coming into the stadium. And to do that, to be able to provide as much room as we can to the home fans, we have limited the number of visiting fans that will come to each of the stadiums, so traveling fans. And so that number is going to be, I think, about 500 a maximum. And really, most of those tickets will be reserved for player families that want to travel and watch their players and their kids in the games.
Gotcha. And so with social distancing in Boone Pickens Stadium, what do you expect capacity to be?
Yeah, I think that we will end up being somewhere in that 25% range that you're seeing out there a lot. And it just works out that way, more or less. And we're still working through the details of that. But the main thing is it's not so much about hitting a certain percentage, but it's about being able to try to distance between groups of seats enough that people are able to stay safe. So as we do that, that will in the end dictate what the final capacity ends up being, or what percentage of that capacity ends up being. But the main thing is just that we're able to try to distance people as much as possible, to give them that sense of safety as much as possible.
And so athletics sent out a survey for season ticket holders. Do you want to keep them? What do you want to do? What if demand is greater than that 25% you're talking about?
Well, that's a great question, and we'll see what that looks like. First of all, we are doing a number of things. So if there are fans that decide that they do not feel comfortable coming to the game, or because of all of the differences, the wearing the masks and maybe not sitting in their same seats, not having the ability to tailgate, if things just are too different that they decide that they want to sit this season out, number one, they've got a couple of options in terms of their purchase. They can contribute their season ticket purchase to us through the Cowboy Relief Fund that we launched, or some portion of that. And certainly, as I mentioned earlier, with the budget shortfall that we will have, we're going to need every bit of the help that we can possibly get from our Cowboy fans out there. But we will also offer full refunds to any fans that don't want to come this year. And then with that, everyone that does, even if you decide you don't want to come this year, we will hold your seats for the 21 season. So no one's going to lose their seating positions through any of this year. We all know that this is a different thing that we're dealing with here. And so your seat location will be safe for the 21 year when hopefully all of this is behind us. But if we do get in a situation where we have to decide who kind of makes it into the stadium and who may not, that will follow our posse priority points and longevity system. So, try to reward those that have been with us the longest and supported the program the longest.
And so will people wear masks in the stadium? Will that be a requirement?
It will be a requirement to wear masks in the stadium. So that follows both the City of Stillwater and the Oklahoma State University campus guidelines for masks in public places. So obviously that will be Boone Pickens Stadium. And now, having said that, we know that there will be concessions available. So once people get their concessions and get back to their seat, and they may be eating and drinking their concessions, obviously you can't do that with a mask on. So in keeping with the same ordinances in Stillwater, where if you are dining in a restaurant, you can take your mask off. Obviously, that will be what you'll need to do to have concessions. But if you're up moving around or when you're done eating, we do want people, again, for their safety and for the safety of those around them, to have the mask on.
And then one question that I know we've gotten a lot: why can't fans tailgate? They love that atmosphere, of course, at a normal time, but why not this year?
Yeah, I understand that. And we have one of the best tailgating environments in all of college football, and I can't wait for that to come back. But really, that is with everything that the OSU campus is going through to have class on Monday through Friday in the classrooms. They're going to extraordinary lengths to keep the students and the professors and faculty and staff safe on campus on Monday through Friday. And so it just, we just need to be part of that. And, you can't have that going on campus on Monday through Friday and then look over out onto the campus and see tailgating like we're used to seeing going on. It kind of would defeat the whole purpose of what they're trying to do to have class here this fall.
And you're a popular guy. We've got a lot of questions coming in, so I'll get to some of these that are coming in through our viewers. And we have one from Carl. He would like to know more about the plans for the suites this season, as well as the plan for the concession stands and options that will be available.
Well, that's a great question. So I'll start with the suites. The suites will be able to, because they're a little bit of a different environment. So right now, and I do have to preface everything I say, with right now, because it's always subject to change based on what it is that we are learning from our medical professionals and the guidance that we're getting there. But as of right now, our plan is to let the suite holders themselves dictate the number in their suite. Obviously, each of the suites are different sizes, and they are self-contained. And so if there is a suite holder that they want to be the only two, let's say, in their suite, they can choose to have them be the only two in their suite. If they want to let a few of their family come in and join them, then they can let their family join them. So that will be up to each of them. Out in the common areas around the suites, that's where you'll see the changes. We're going to really reduce the mingling, if you will, out in the common areas, and try to keep everybody in their suites. So that will be different. And then as far as the concessions in the stadium, we will be making some changes there too. Some we haven't even announced yet, but I think you can look for some announcements coming there where you may be able to order food and have that delivered directly to your seat. Is something we're going to try this year. But there'll be plexiglass at the concession stands to also provide a barrier there between the customers and the people working those concession stands. We're going to ask everybody to kind of keep distance, don't get in line right behind each other and that kind of thing out on the concourses. We'll have some in the places where the restrooms set up for this. We'll try to, I think, have an entrance and an exit so that there's a flow through the restrooms. So just try to eliminate the crossover of people as much as we can.
And then what about the club level food there? So if you're not in the suites, but you're still up in that area, how does that work?
Yes, so we're working through all the details of that as well. And that is, again, going to be something that is different. It won't look like what it looked like in previous years, and hopefully what it will look like in the future. But we'll probably try to offer as much of the food in that area as more of a grab and go type thing. So again, there's not lines forming. There's not people going through the buffets and serving themselves, that sort of thing. So we want to keep things moving as much as possible. I know the bar areas in the club level are somewhere that there's typically a lot of gathering going on. It's a lot of fun to be there, but so we're going to change up the way that we do some of the bar service there, probably limit some of the choices that we might normally have that take the time and have people gathering there. So we just, we're going to be making a lot of changes like that. And we appreciate everyone's patience as we work through those. And we know it's different. We know it may not have the choices that everyone is used to. And believe me, we want to get back to those as soon as we possibly can too. And we will as soon as we can.
Let's see. Drew would like to know if there will be any sort of temperature checks or other precautions taken before you enter the stadium.
Yeah, we've talked about that, and again, we will follow whatever the medical advice that we're getting there is. Right now, I think what we're hearing is that obviously this is an outdoor venue, and especially early in the season, be warm, and so I think that there's a concern that we would get a lot of false high temperature readings with people coming into the stadium and in that environment. And so we'll do everything that makes sense for us to do and what we can do. But right now, that's kind of the concern that we have with that at this point. Again, we're fortunate here at OSU, the Boone Pickens Stadium, for those fans who have traveled to a lot of other college stadiums, they'll understand this, but we're fortunate to have the number of gates that we have. We're fortunate to have the number of concession stands we have. We're fortunate to have the number of restrooms that we have. So I think, we'll use all of those to try to space people out so we don't have big congregations of people together. But if you are coming up on the gate and trying to walk in, we don't want people getting right behind each other, that kind of thing. So try to stay distance. We are going to go to mobile ticketing, which I think will help with some of that exchange, if you will, but also obviously with all the changes, it's hard to get things printed and mailed out in the traditional sense. But all of those things are just to try to cut down the interaction.
And then that's a perfect segue into our next viewer question. Someone said earlier in the spring, season ticket holders were asked if they would choose between paper or mobile tickets. If you chose paper, you were charged $40. Will that be refunded now that tickets have to be mobile?
That's a great question. And I'm sure that our staff in the ticket office has thought of that. And my guess is that is the plan. I will check on that. I don't know specifically. We haven't talked about that specifically, or I haven't. But yes, I would suspect that we would do that. And that is one of the things that we have talked a lot about here. Coach Holder has talked a lot about is that, through all of this, we are going to treat the Cowboy faithful and Cowboy fans just like we would want to be treated if we were out there, we were fans coming to Boone Pickens Stadium. So, or if we're fans that choose not to come to Boone Pickens Stadium, how is it that you're going to want to be treated? So we're trying to do that as much as we can.
And then Jill asked if ticket holders would receive partial refunds due to the number of home games being reduced.
That's a good question too, and we are working through exactly how that is going to look, and as well as when we would start to issue refunds. And part of that is it's probably going to be best for I think everyone, as this works out, just to see how much of the season that we can have, and if we're able to play all 5 games, or if we have interruptions in the season and we, for whatever reason, only get to play 4 or get to play 3, and then probably try to just kind of settle up, if you will, at the end of the season with what has transpired. And again, based on that, treat all of the fans, like we would want to be treated as fairly as we can treat them.
Absolutely. Gary asked if the Big 12 Conference is offering any support to help ease the financial burden during this time.
That's also a good question. And, the thing about the Big 12 Conference is really the conference is the 10 schools in the Big 12, and they just sort of act as a administrative body, and in this case, who enters into the contract with our television partners, for example. So, any support that they would be providing to the schools is somehow related to our money. In other words, the Big 12 doesn't have its own money. It really is just a distribution channel for the money that comes to the schools. So there's been talk, I think, about creative ways that they can help get us through this. I think there is a reluctance to some degree to go down any kind of path like that at this point. Just because we don't know what the future holds. And so it's hard to say we're going to just try to fix the problem this year when we aren't 100% confident that the problem is just going to be this year. So we want to be very careful that whatever we do, we're not turning it into a problem that lasts for a long, long time in terms of taking on any additional debt or making decisions that impact the future of the program more than it needs to.
Stan asked if other fall sports will continue as planned despite there being no NCAA championships.
So we're working through that as well. I think there is a call going on right now with the Big 12 Conference and the leaders of the Big 12 Conference to kind of try to work through what that might look like. And our intent at this point, I think, is still to try to play those sports. Soccer is one that we have. Other schools in the Big 12 have volleyball. We don't have that sport. So they're trying to work through that as well. Obviously, we were scheduled to host the cross-country national championship here in Stillwater at our beautiful renovated course in November. And so we don't know exactly what that means for championships, but we feel strongly that we still want our student athletes to be able to compete if they want to compete. And what that looks like at this point, we're still working through. But, that is, for all of our student athletes, that is their dream. And we're very sensitive to that. We know that they've worked very hard their entire lives to get to this level and to be able to compete at this level. And so I think they want to do that, whether it's football, soccer, cross country, basketball, baseball, softball, you name it. That's what they want to do. Now, they do want to know that they're going to be safe doing it. And we're trying to do everything we can to provide that safety for them. If they decide that's not the right thing for them to do, then they can opt out of doing that, and their scholarship will be protected. And so we want them to have that choice as well. But that is what we want at Oklahoma State, is for all of our student athletes to do what they love, and that's to compete.
Lucy asks, when looking at limited stadium capacity, how will that impact the number of students who can attend games in BPS?
It will limit the number of students as well. So we will have we have the designated student sections. And so, we'll keep those sections for the students, but they will be distanced in those sections, just like fans in other parts of the sections will be distanced. And however that number works out to where they've got that distancing will be the number that we have to limit it to for the students as well.
And then we have one, Jack asked even a little bit further down the road about Gallagher-Iba for wrestling basketball season. Have you guys had a chance to discuss those things yet?
At this point, the conference or the NCAA, either one, has not had a lot of discussion about the winter sports. So those would fall into the classification of winter sports. So right now, all of the conversation, obviously, a lot of the time has been spent on the fall sports. So football, volleyball, soccer, cross country, et cetera. I suspect that as we sort of get to some of the decisions on the fall sports, it will quickly turn to the winter sports and what that might look like to move forward with those. And I do suspect that, just like it is with the fall sports, we're not going to know those answers immediately or anytime soon. And likely how the success of the fall seasons go will have an impact on what happens with the winter sports as well.
And then this one's not a question, but a comment in there that I wanted to share with you. Buck says the level of transparency that the athletic department and the ticket office have shown throughout the crisis has been very impressive and much appreciated. Margaret also says she's very impressed with this presentation today and the information that was provided. So shout out to you guys. Thought that was nice to add in there as well.
I appreciate Buck and Margaret on that as well. And our staff, our team has done a great job, I think, of putting that plan together. And I look forward to sharing those comments with them and passing that along to them. They'll be grateful to hear that. And I do appreciate it too. And it goes back to, we just want everybody to be treated like we would want to be treated.
Absolutely. And got a few more for you before we let you go. I want to end on a positive note, because I know some of those questions are stressful and we're working through them at this time. So what is it that you're most looking forward to? We take COVID out of the equation, which I know we can't realistically do, but just in sports in general this year, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm so hopeful that we are able to compete, and that is why I do what I do. Is I love that part of it. I love seeing these young people get to do their passion, do what they want to do. And if we are able to do those things, I couldn't be more excited about the seasons that I think we're going to have across the board. I think our football team is going to be really, really good. Our soccer team will compete for another conference championship. Our cross country team, I think, would be in the hunt for the national championship hosting here at home. Obviously, in basketball, we've got great returners and women's basketball and some additions to their recruiting class as well. Obviously, we've got a great recruiting class headlined by the #1 player in all of college basketball coming in for the men's team. Baseball is going to have a great team coming in. Obviously, if we can get into that beautiful new stadium and play some games there. Softball is looking to have another great year. Tennis, we were supposed to host the national championship last spring in tennis, and I think they are looking forward to having great years. Golf always obviously is poised to have a great year. I think our women's golf program is on the rise and is going to make a lot of noise. So across the board, I couldn't be more excited about the year that our programs were going to have. And I just hope so much that we get to see that.
I agree. Looking forward to a lot of great things. And great stadium. I have had the chance to go in there. And once we're able to all be in there safely, that's going to be a really fun time for sure.
Awesome. Yep.
So, well, thank you so much, Chad. We know that you are a busy man and have a lot going on right now. Everything's changing a lot. So we appreciate you taking the time to update the Cowboy family and to work so hard to make these things happen. So just as we are leaving today, a bit of information for everybody watching. You can watch all of our previous Fridays with the family at orangeconnection.org/webinars, along with many other educational videos. And so those old videos include last week's with Coach Mike Boynton, and he talks about that exciting basketball season as well that we have ahead. So while you're browsing, make sure to check out the Alumni Association's new membership model and claim your credit toward a life membership. You can learn more at orangeconnection.org/life. Thank you again for joining us today. A huge thank you again to Chad. As always, go Pokes. We hope you're all doing well and staying healthy.